Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Talking Real Estate with Champions Real Estate Team here, Berkshire Hathaway Home Service Ambassador Real Estate Company. My name is Mark Wehner II, team leader here. Joining me today is Russ Williams with Williams Mortgage. So we jump on, and Russ and I were just talking right before we got on. I think this is like our fifth anniversary this month of doing our Talking Real Estate segment. We started back in COVID when we were just trying to get out information to people as far as what's going on in the real estate market, and 5 years later, I don't know how many episodes or whatever you want to call it we've been doing here. So, but yeah, so and we were laughing about kind of just the market and all that good stuff, what it was going on 5 years ago, what's going on today, kind of just giving it a whole encompassing view on everything. So, one of the things that I guess I'll start with a quick tip. So, quick tip today is, over the last 2 weeks, had, two listings go live and all that good stuff. So my quick tip is just giving you a press box view of what's going on in the marketplace. So, my quick tip is working with an agent that is active in the marketplace. And why I say that is, me working with buyers throughout this whole year. I think I've done with 10 transactions already this year. And then on the listing side, this last house we just had go on the market on Friday, the one on Pine Street over in Morton Meadows, we had 8 offers on the house. And so when I get multiple offers, I set up a spreadsheet for my sellers so they can go over the offers in a clear manner. And it's after kind of not over but analyzing those offers, that is what I use to help my buyers and say, hey, here's a press box view. After that sale has closed, I can use that data and show my buyers and say, hey, here's what's going on. Here's the plays in the playbook that people are using. And unbeknownst to me, when I looked at that, there are some plays in the playbook that were not used by any of those 8 agents, in that offer structure that potentially could have, swayed or got the best terms for, their clients. And so that's just stuff that, being in the business for 17 years, teaching real estate continuing education classes. So I talk to agents all the time, teach classes all throughout the year. And it's just those things that we can, like I say, and you've heard me say it multiple times over the 5 years we've been on, is that my goal as a buyer's agent is to get you a seat at the table if there's a multiple offer situation. And what I mean by that is, you may have one thing that, let's say, home inspections. That I want that agent to call me and say, hey, Mark, we love your offer, but, does your client want to do X? Okay, well, let me call my client. And then that way you have an opportunity to, as the buyer, go, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? Do I want to go up in purchase price? Do I want to not go down in purchase price? Do I want to do an appraisal gap? Do I want to do closing costs, the seller closing costs? Do I want to do the inspection, not do the inspection? All those type of things. And those are those things that when we coach you at the buyer's, coaching session, that you're aware of all those tools in the toolbox. And then, like I said, you're kind of a little bit more in the driver's seat because this weekend, I had to send out 7 text message or call 7 agents and say, hey, really appreciate your offer, but unfortunately, the seller decided to go with a different offer. And you don't have you're like, oh, well, we would have done this or we would have done this, and it's like, you don't have a chance. And so, I even talked to another agent. She called me yesterday. So what was it, Tuesday? We accepted the offer back on Friday. She's like, hey, my clients are still kind of, trying to figure out what they could have done differently. And, is there any tips you can give, of what could have made our offer better? And being an agent that's experienced, hey, these are some things you can do. And I'm happy to help other agents and say, hey, these are things that may have, adjusted, the seller's viewpoints. And, sometimes it just comes down to price. And it's, if you're not willing to go up, then unfortunately, but it's good to know that. But at least, my goal is to get my clients in front of that seller and say, hey, would your client do this? Would your client come up $5,000? Would your client come up $1,000? Then I can come back to you as the buyer and say, what would you like to do? And I'm not trying to push you one way or the other. You have an opportunity to say yes or no. And I think my clients appreciate that they've at least had an opportunity because, like I said, there were 7 phone calls, text messages that I had to seven conversations I had to have with other agents and say, unfortunately, you didn't get it, but we'll let you know if something changes. And so that's my goal is that you don't get that phone call, or we don't get that phone call. We can at least have an opportunity to adjust our offer. And maybe you don't want to adjust your offer, and that's perfectly fine. And if it's not the right house, let's go find you one. There's plenty of houses out there, and things happen for a reason, all that kind of, song and dance that we go through too. But that's just the things that I guess this is more longer than a quick tip, but that's the thing is working with agents, here at Champions Real Estate Team, that we have the tools in the toolbox that we're going to employ, or deploy at the time that we need to do that, or, at least let you know that option that's out there rather than, oh gosh, I wish we would have done this after the fact. And those are those things that we try to do with experience, especially in these multiple offer type situations, and what can we do, throughout the entire, process of getting into a house. So, but yeah, with that being said, let's jump in, see what's going on in the real estate market here over the last 7 days. Let me pull up my graphics here. So we had 654 new listings go live over the last 7 days, 488 go under contract in the last 7 days, and 411 happy new homeowners over the last week. So congratulations to them. So like I said, we're starting to see those numbers tick up in the 600. I think that's 2 weeks straight here that we've gotten to or up to that 600 mark. As far as new listings going live, we're still about that 480. I think we were like 466 or something, I believe, last week. If I look back, yeah, 465. So we're seeing more buyer activity. Obviously, the weather's getting nicer. We'll talk here shortly with Russ, just kind of what the rates are doing and how is that playing into parts of everything, and all that good stuff. So yeah, so market's still very active out there. Let's take a look at the 30,000 foot view. So we're going higher in that press box view. So, but anyways, we had gone over the 3,000 mark. So let me see. I don't know when was the last time we hit the last 3,000. Back in January was the last time we had over 3,000 houses on the market, in the Omaha and Lincoln MLS. So, and then narrowing that down, 1,724 in the Douglas-Sarpy County, Omaha kind of metro area there. And then we had 781 existing homes, 943 in the new construction department. So those numbers are ticking up a little bit, which is good. We need that inventory obviously coming into spring, but we're also going to see more buyers come in the market potentially. But we'll talk about that with Russ and what he's seeing, with the rates and the fluctuation in the interest rate. So, and then we got the what's your buckets here? The average sold price is at 341, 2.4%, or 2.7% above this time last year. So we're seeing some, good, decent appreciation, which is about normal on that side of it. So let's jump in here with Russ and see what he's got to say. I know there's been a lot of volatility in the marketplace, and all that kind of fun stuff. So Russ, I know you're unmute here, so you probably unmute yourself. But
There we
cool.
go. So
How we
sorry about
doing?
that. Yeah, I'm battling a bit of a cold, so forgive my Barry White voice.
It's all
Yeah,
right.
we're seeing a lot of volatility, and it really all ties back to the tariffs, what we're seeing happen there. Essentially, the market is spooked, and probably will be spooked until we see some resolution there. And while we don't want to hear that, anybody who's considering buying a home, this presents a great opportunity for you. And let me explain why. Yes, mortgage rates are up from where they were just a week ago. That doesn't sound good, but we have had a number of people that we have heard from that are no longer in the marketplace. They're no longer looking at buying homes because they don't like that rates have gone up. What that means for you, given that Omaha was rated the hottest market in the country, is you might have less competition. What does that mean? You might not have to pay 5, 6, 7% more than the asking price because you may not be in multiple bidding situations. This tariff situation won't last forever. And when it does end, mortgage rates may come back down. We don't know that for sure. Mark and I were talking before the call here, the Zoom here, that we have been talking for 5 years that when and if rates come down, they've moved up, they've moved down. It's not uncommon that that happens. But over the course of the last 5 years, home values have gone up. Mark will probably show it to you here between 40 and 50%. That's a huge number. What I'm telling you is buy the house. Mark has said this a million times. Marry the house and date the rate. Buy the house, even though the rates are above where we'd like them to be. And when and if rates come down, we can refinance and right size that rate. If you were to wait until next year, it is highly likely that you'll be paying more for the house, and there's no guarantee that the rate will have come down. Let me give you a quick example, and I don't want to hog all the time here, but if you bought a home today for $210,000, uh, your payment would be somewhere in the range of about $1,700 when you start to take into account some of the extra cost at 20% down payment. If instead you said, I don't like these current rates, I'm going to wait for a year from now. Yes, your payment may be lower by 75 bucks a month, but you're paying almost $6,000 more for that house just based upon conservative forecasts of what appreciation might be. So what I'm telling you is buy the house today, you can always refinance if the rates come down. You'll owe less on the house, and the cost of a refinance is not going to be nearly as much as what the appreciation is that you would likely have gained in that house over the next 12 months. Can we guarantee appreciation? No. But if we were to look at appreciation rates just over the last 5 years that Mark has shown you here, we have picked up 40, 50% in value just over the last several years. And Mark and I could go on for days and show you all kinds of reports about how demand and supply that balance work. So what I'm telling you is none of us like these rates. None of us like that we have uncertainty going on with the tariff wars. But what this does do is present a great opportunity for you to get the house that you want at today's price and then right size that rate later on.
Yeah, and so I just kind of go over this graph here. So as we take a look at this, is basically over the last 5 years. The green is the average for sale price, and the red is the average sold price. So if you take a look at the where the let me zoom out here. I was trying to make it so people on Zoom could see a little better. But you see prices start going up basically in the December time frame. They start ticking up. So right now prices are going up, and then I mean you can see over 5 years you see the peaks and the valleys and the high times and the low times of when we talk about when should we list a house, when should we put the house on the market. Well, let's take a look at when the highest price is. So basically right here on this May, probably March time frame, the prices go up, they kind of level out, they go up, they level out, they go up, they level out. And so when you're talking about when do you want to buy a house, you want to buy down at the bottom here in the November timeframe. And that's what we were talking about that last November. Hey, if you're thinking about buying, don't wait till spring because the house's price is going up. And so when we just look at straight data for people, and this is what we're trying to educate everybody on, is that like, we talked about in COVID and all that stuff, basically down here, this number, basically the average sold price or yeah, average sold price is at 345 right now, and it was in March of 2025. The average sold price in 2020 was 236, so it's up 46%. So if you'd have bought a house in 2020, you'd almost, on average, be up 46% of that appreciation at those rates, and you could have refinanced them, throughout that time frame. But as you look at the graphs, I mean, it's just simple statistics as it's, the graph. I mean, you could go back, on this chart, I can go back a lot farther, and you can see what the typical, the peaks and the valleys are throughout each year. And so when people say, hey, Mark, when's a good time to list a house? When's a good time to buy a house? Well, we know just based off of historical data. Now, ultimately, we cannot predict a future, and all that good stuff. But, history tends to repeat itself. What that's our goal here is just to educate you, give that information, and then use our tool in the toolbox to go out and get, from a seller's perspective, maximize your equity, or from a buyer's perspective, let's get that house or let's get it for the best price. And maybe you can find something that doesn't have the lipstick on the pig, and you get something you got to put a little sweat equity into, and maybe you're up 60% on your appreciation versus, trying to force that equity into that house. So those are a lot of things that we like to talk about here. And I mean, I enjoy it. I could talk, everybody's ear off on this stuff as much as people want to hear it, don't want to hear it. But this is stuff that, that we're passionate about, and Russ on the financing side, he knows the numbers from that perspective of it better than I do. And that's why we work together to, form a team, to work together so that we can educate our buyers and just get that information out there. And if your agent's not going over this stuff with you, or you're kind of shopping around looking for different agents to work with, we just love the opportunity, to earn your business. And I feel that, with what we put out there and all the things that we offer, I think we would be a very good a fit for a lot of buyers and a lot of sellers out there to maximize their equity. Because you can see here that that's already ticking up at the very bottom end here. We kind of hit the bottom, as far as average sold price, and now we're headed back up. And so that's just simple data. And it's the same thing at the same time frame. Here's the dip, and it goes back up. Here's the dip, and then it goes back up. You can literally find it everywhere on here on the graph. So I think graphs and numbers and stuff like that, this is all stuff we're happy to share with you. If you have questions, comments on the graph, what are your thoughts? What are you as the consumer or other maybe agents that watch this video? We'd love to chat with you and just get your feedback on it, and happy to help you in any way, shape, or form that we can. So, but I know we probably chat a lot more longer than what we needed to, but appreciate everyone that watches us, like, subscribe, all that kind of fun stuff. Share your comments what you think about these graphs, or what you think about rates, prices, and all that good stuff. So I know I always see on Facebook when people post up, houses for sale, for rent, you always get a lot of the people making comments on, well, this house is too high, or this is this. Well, let's have a conversation about it. Why is it where is it at? Where is it at? Why is rent where it's at? Those are all things that we can talk with you. Does it make sense to rent a house or buy a house? I know we haven't done it in a while, but we used to do a rent versus buying, kind of conversation, and just had graphs and had, does it make sense? Does it not? If you've been renting a house the last 5 years waiting for rates to come down, you've missed out on 40, 50% of appreciation on your house. So that appreciation for that landlord, that owner of that house, has capitalized on all that. Plus, they've taken depreciation for their taxes. That they're taking advantage of those assets. And that's just something, home ownership is, one of the largest drivers of generational wealth and wealth to grow that. As long as you're taking care of that asset, just like anything else. So, anyways, I'll stop yapping here so we can shorten this video up. But anyways, you have questions, comments, give us a holler. Love to chat with you, and take care.